Today we are going to be grading every single first round pick from the 2025 NFL Draft 1 year later. The NFL Draft is only 1 week away, so why not take a trip down memory lane and look back at last year's rookies and see how they did in their rookie seasons. Now, of course, you can't really judge a player based off just his first season alone in the NFL, so do take these rankings with a grain of salt. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Kicking things off with the number 1 overall pick, the Tennessee Titans selected Cam Ward. And I'm going to have to unfortunately give this pick a C-. Ward didn't necessarily have a bad rookie season, but he also didn't have a good one. Throwing for 15 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions isn't terrible considering the limited help that Ward had all season in Tennessee, but overall he didn't show very many flashes, and I think you'd want a little bit more production from the guy you took first overall, especially when it's a quarterback. Next up, at number 2 overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Travis Hunter, and I'm going to have to give this a D-. Unfortunately for Hunter, he suffered a season-ending injury in Week 7, so this grade is based off a very limited sample size, but even in that small sample size, Hunter basically produced nothing. The big selling point with Hunter coming out of Colorado was that he could play both sides of the ball at an elite level, but once he got to the NFL, at least this season, he played both sides of the ball, but definitely not at an elite level or even a good level. In 7 games, he only had 28 receptions for 298 yards and just 1 receiving touchdown on the offensive side of the ball, and the defensive end wasn't much better as teams were constantly picking on him, and his PFF grades were all pretty bad as well. Considering the insane trade haul that the Jaguars gave the Browns to trade up and draft Hunter, you definitely want more from the 2nd overall pick. At number 3, the New York Giants selected Abdul Carter, and I'm going to give this pick a B+. Although Carter's numbers didn't jump off the pages, and he did have some off-the-field issues with some lack of effort and attention in team meetings, but overall, it was a solid rookie campaign for Carter. He finished the season with 5 sacks and 66 pressures, as well as an 84.5 pass rush grade, which ranks 10th among edge rushers in the entire NFL. Overall, Carter was a nice complement to an already stacked Giants defensive line and had a solid rookie campaign, and I could definitely see him taking a huge step forward in year 2 and becoming the best pass rusher on this team. At number 4, the New England Patriots selected offensive tackle Will Campbell, and contrary to popular opinion, I'm actually going to give this a B+. I know that Campbell wasn't good in the playoffs last year, but we can't ignore that he was still a very solid offensive tackle in the NFL, especially for a rookie. His short arms definitely are a concern, especially when you look at his terrible performance in the playoffs against some of the best edge rushers in the NFL. He also did allow 5 sacks in 1 game, but he was going against Myles Garrett. Overall, Campbell was a solid pass blocker in his first year, and that's all you can really ask for a tackle that you take 4th overall. At number 5, the Las Vegas Raiders selected running back Ashton Jeanty, and I'm going to give this an A-. Jeanty gets a lot of unnecessary hate, probably because he didn't live up to his ADP in fantasy, but that doesn't mean he didn't have a great season still. Jeanty had 975 yards on the ground, 346 in the air, and 10 total touchdowns. So that's a 1,200 yard and 10 touchdown season, and honestly, you're a fool if you think that's not a great year for a running back, especially a rookie. Now, I know people will look at his yards per attempt being only 3.7 and saying that's a little bit low, but you have to remember he was playing behind that abysmal Raiders offensive line. Now with the acquisition of Tyler Linderbaum and several other key additions on offense, I expect Ashton Jeanty to have an absolutely amazing season next year. At number 6 overall, the Cleveland Browns selected defensive tackle Mason Graham, and I'm going to put my bias aside here and give this one a B-. Graham was solid in his rookie season, but I'd like to see a little bit more out of a guy who went 6th overall. His pass rushing production was basically non-existent, but he was a very solid run defender, and he definitely contributed to Myles Garrett's record-breaking season. Without him, I don't think Myles will be able to do it. Graham was definitely a key contributor to this Browns defense last year, and I think with a whole offseason, he should be able to get that pass rush production up a little bit, and then we can start talking about him as maybe a potential Pro Bowler. Overall, not a bad pick for the Browns. At number 7 overall, the New York Jets selected offensive tackle Armand Membou, and I'm going to give this a B. Unlike most Jets first round picks, Membou was actually solid. He ranked as a top 31 overall tackle in the NFL in his rookie year, The reason that this grade isn't a little bit higher is because he did allow quite a few sacks, and he had a lot of penalties, 11 to be exact. But he definitely is a solid player, and if you're a Jets fan, you can't complain about this pick. At number 8, the Carolina Panthers selected wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan. And I'm going to give this pick our first A+. McMillan was everything that you could ask for in a rookie wide receiver, posting 70 catches for 1,014 yards and 7 touchdowns in his rookie campaign. He contributed to this growing Carolina offense and even helped them to a playoff berth. I also can't go without mentioning that McMillan won Offensive Rookie of the Year. If your player wins Rookie of the Year, that's a pretty clear sign that this was a good pick, justifying his A+ grade. At number 9, the New Orleans Saints selected offensive tackle Calvin Banks, and I'm going to give this pick a B+. Calvin Banks had a solid rookie year. His pass protection leaves a little bit to be desired, but his run blocking is where he truly shines, posting a 76.2 grade on PFF, which ranks 19th among 89 qualified tackles. He had 12 penalties, which he definitely needs to clean up a little bit, but once he does that, we're looking at a very solid player for years to come. At number 10, the Chicago Bears selected tight end Colston Loveland, and I'm going to give this pick an A. At the start of the year, this pick was honestly looking like it could have been a D or even an F, but in the second half of the season, Loveland absolutely lit it up. He finished the season with 58 catches at 713 yards and 6 touchdowns, and also had some very clutch performances in the playoffs and late games in the regular season. I remember at the time of this pick, everyone was very skeptical because the Bears took Loveland over Tyler Warren, who was kind of the consensus best tight end in this class. But overall, Loveland had a great season and is looking to be a strong contributor in Ben Johnson's offense. At number 11, the San Francisco 49ers selected defensive end Mykel Williams, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this pick a D. Sadly, Williams suffered a season-ending injury this year, which limited him to only 9 games, but in those 9 games, he left a lot to be desired. In those 9 games, he only had 1 sack and 13 tackles and a 53.9 overall PFF grade, which is definitely not the production you want from the 11th overall pick and second edge rusher off the board. Again, with all these prospects, there's always a chance that Mykel Williams will break out or bounce back and have a great year next year, as he was only a rookie last year, but for now, this pick is not looking too great for the 49ers. At number 12, the Dallas Cowboys selected offensive guard Tyler Booker, and I'm going to give this pick an A. Booker was one of the best run blockers in the entire NFL last season, holding a 67.8 grade, which ranked 7th among all offensive guards. He also allowed very few sacks and really helped pave the way for Javonte Williams and that dominant Cowboys run game. I think the Cowboys made a really good pick here, and I expect Tyler Booker to continue the success into year 2. At number 13, the Miami Dolphins selected defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, and I'm going to have to give this pick a D-. Grant was basically non-existent this season. He wasn't particularly good in the pass rush game or the run defense game, and honestly, he didn't do really anything well this season. He only had 3 sacks and 24 tackles despite playing the entire year, and overall just does not look like the difference maker that you want when you're taking a defensive tackle in the first round. He still has time to improve, but for now, this pick stays at a D-. At number 14, the Colts selected tight end Tyler Warren, and I'm going to be giving this pick an A+. I think it's very safe to say that Tyler Warren has already solidified himself as a definite top 5 tight end in the NFL. Last year, Warren caught 76 passes for 817 yards and 4 touchdowns, and was selected to the Pro Bowl. His blocking is also very strong, and he can act as an offensive lineman on any given down. His production definitely dropped a little bit after Daniel Jones got hurt, but that's understandable considering he had retirement home Phillip Rivers throwing him the ball, so I don't think that dip in production is enough to justify not giving this pick an A+. At number 15, the Atlanta Falcons selected defensive end Jalon Walker, and I'm going to give this a B+. Walker was pretty good last season. He had a 71.6 overall grade, but an 81.3 run defense grade, which ranked 6th amongst all edge rushers. He also had 6 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, really contributing to that breakout Falcons defense. Overall, it was a very solid year for him, and I think the Falcons will be very happy with the player that Walker turns out to be. At number 16, the Arizona Cardinals selected defensive tackle Walter Nolan, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to give this pick a B+. Although Nolan barely appeared last season, playing in only 169 snaps, he was extremely good for those 169 snaps. He had 2 sacks and a pass rush grade of 80.1, which is extremely solid for a rookie defensive tackle. Nolan looked like a true difference maker in his limited sample size this season, so next year, when he plays a full season, I think he could be a real disruptor and maybe even a Pro Bowler. Overall, not a bad pick for the Cardinals. At number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals selected defensive end Shemar Stewart, and I'm going to have to give this our first F. Stewart just sucked last season. Going into the draft, his main concern was his pass rush production, which was literally non-existent in college, and that trend continued over to the NFL as his pass rush production was non-existent. He only played in 8 games, so I'll give him a little bit of grace, but he was still terrible in those 8 games, posting an overall grade of 41.2 and a shockingly low 29.3 run defense grade, which both rank last among all edge rushers in the NFL. It was a terrible season for Stewart, but given his physical profile and huge size, I definitely think he has the opportunity to bounce back next season, especially with Trey Henderson leaving, which opens the door for more starts and opportunities for Stewart. At number 18, the Seattle Seahawks selected offensive guard Gray Zabel, and I'm going to give this pick a C+. Zabel was pretty much just completely average in his rookie season, but the Seahawks still had a very strong run game, and they did, win the Super Bowl, so that bumps Zabel's grade up just a little bit. He's not flashy, and he doesn't do anything particularly elite or even well for that matter, but he was still okay in his rookie year, and I think he has the potential to keep getting better and better as his years go on in Seattle. Overall, just an pick for the Seahawks. At number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, and I'm going to give this pick an A+. Just like I said about Ted McMillan, Emeka Egbuka gave you everything you want from a rookie wide receiver. In 17 games, he had 63 catches, 938 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He stepped up big time for the Buccaneers, who suffered a lot of injuries to the receiving corps during the season. However, his production definitely did slow a little bit at the end of the season, but now that he's a true wide receiver 1 in Tampa, I expect him to have another great season next year. At number 20, the Denver Broncos selected cornerback Jahdae Barron, and I'm giving this pick a C-. I remember at the time of this pick, everyone was very confused as to why the Broncos selected a corner, and I think 1 year later, we still are. Barron didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but when he did, he was actually pretty bad. His PFF pass coverage grade was a 47.8, which ranked 108th out of 114 corners. However, his run defense grade was a 73.2, so not all of his game was terrible. I definitely expect a bigger role for Barron in this defense next season, and I hope he can improve from what was a very lackluster rookie season. At number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected defensive tackle Derek Harmon, and I'm going to give this pick a D. It was pretty much just a nothing burger season for Derek Harmon. He didn't really contribute much, though he did have 4 sacks, which is pretty good, but overall he was just kind of invisible out there, and he didn't get much playing time due to him being on the Steelers, obviously, and them having a very stacked defensive line core already. This pick was definitely for the future, but based off what I've seen so far, there's just not a lot to love with Harmon. At number 22, the Los Angeles Chargers selected running back Omarion Hampton, and I'm going to have to give this a B+. This one was sort of difficult to grade because Hampton missed a lot of time due to injury, but when he played, he was definitely a difference maker out there for the Chargers. I was very big on Hampton going into the draft, and he definitely did not disappoint my expectations, posting 545 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns in just 9 games last season. He looked very explosive last year, and I expect him to make a huge step up in year 2 and solidify himself as a top 10 running back in the NFL. At number 23, the Green Bay Packers selected wide receiver Matthew Golden, and I'm going to give this pick a D-. After years of begging the Packers to draft a receiver in the first round after never doing so while Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback, the Packers finally went out and got one. Unfortunately for them, he kind of sucks. In 14 games, Golden only had 29 catches for 361 yards and 0 touchdowns. Golden still had some strong games in the playoffs, and with the departure of Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, I expect him to be a lot more involved in this offense next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a true breakout year and becomes the first round talent that we all expected him to be coming out of Texas. But until I see that, this pick's going to remain a very low grade. At number 24, the Minnesota Vikings selected offensive guard Donovan Jackson, and I'm going to give this pick a C. Jackson was just okay in his first year in Minnesota. He wasn't particularly bad, but he also wasn't great either. His pass blocking is pretty solid, and he did allow a low amount of penalties and sacks, so I wouldn't call him a bad player by any means. He's just not the best player. Overall, just a pretty average pick for the Vikings here. At number 25, the New York Giants selected quarterback Jackson Dart, and I'm going to give this pick an A+. Last season, Dart was everything the Giants hoped and dreamed he would be as a late first-round QB prospect. I would definitely say that Dart was the best rookie quarterback last season, having a combined 24 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. Although he only had a 4-8 record, he is still playing for the Giants, and I definitely expect him to be their franchise quarterback going forward. And honestly, I think next year, the Giants are a team that we shouldn't be sleeping on. With Jackson Dart, this team is easily playoff contenders in my opinion. At number 26, the Atlanta Falcons selected defensive end James Pierce, and I'm going to give this pick a B+. This one was a little bit difficult to grade just because Pierce had a plethora of off-the-field issues this offseason, but purely based off what I saw on the field, Pierce was a very solid player in his rookie year. Although his PFF grades weren't the highest, he still had 11 sacks, which is a lot, which means he was contributing to this team. And overall, Pierce and his fellow teammate and first-round pick, Jalon Walker, really sparked some life into this Falcons defensive line. If Pierce can just stay on the field and stay out of trouble, then he'll be a solid player for years to come. At number 27, the Baltimore Ravens selected safety Malachi Starks, and I'm going to give this pick a C+. Starks was just okay in his rookie season. He did excel in the run game, but in the pass coverage game, he was just alright. I will admit, anyone playing next to Kyle Hamilton is going to look weak in comparison, but Starks still had a solid rookie season. I didn't see anything particularly special about his game, and that's why he only gets a C+, but overall, not a bad pick for Baltimore. At number 28, the Detroit Lions selected defensive tackle Tyleik Williams, and I'm giving this pick a C-. Williams really didn't do much of anything last season. He did play a couple snaps, but overall, he wasn't much of a contributor. He only had 19 pressures, 16 tackles, and 1 sack, which is not the ideal production you want from your first-round defensive tackle, who was praised for his pass rushing coming into the draft. His run defense was pretty mid, and overall, not a great year for the Lions rookie. At number 28, the Washington Commanders selected offensive tackle Josh Conerly, and I'm going to give this pick a C-. Like most people who received a C- grade in this list, Conerly wasn't absolutely terrible, but he wasn't very good either. He did play a lot of snaps for Washington last year, but he also committed a lot of penalties, 13, and allowed 8 sacks last season as well. He wasn't terrible, but he also wasn't good, just an average year for the rookie. At number 30, the Buffalo Bills selected cornerback Maxwell Hairston, and I'm going to give this pick a B+. Hairston only played in 11 games for the Bills last season, but in those games, he was actually quite solid. He only allowed 15 catches while also grabbing 2 interceptions and had a pass coverage grade of 68.0, which ranked 34th in the entire league among cornerbacks. There is definitely a lot of room for improvement in Hairston's game, but nonetheless, it was still a very good season for the rookie corner. At number 31, the Philadelphia Eagles selected linebacker Jahad Campbell, and I'm going to give this pick an A. Campbell was probably the most underrated rookie in all of football last season. This guy is a shutdown coverage linebacker. He posted an overall PFF grade of 76.2, which ranked 13th among all linebackers, and a coverage grade of 78.6, which ranked 5th in the entire league. Campbell is looking like a franchise player at the linebacker position, and the duo of him and Zach Bond is among the best in the entire NFL. The Eagles definitely got a hidden gem in Campbell, and I expect him to continue this level of play and make Pro Bowls in the NFL for years to come. With the final pick in the first round at number 32, the Kansas City Chiefs selected offensive tackle Josh Simmons, and I'm going to give this pick a B-. Simmons had a pretty solid rookie season. Although his run blocking was among some of the worst in the entire NFL, he was still a rookie, And his pass blocking was very, very solid, posting a 75.5 grade, which ranked 25th among all tackles. He also only allowed 2 sacks, which is very low for a rookie offensive tackle, and was one of the few bright spots on this Chiefs team that really struggled in 2025. Simmons is definitely a good, not great player, but I don't think the Chiefs can be too mad with this pick. And that is going to do it for the video. Remember that these are just my personal rankings, so if you disagree with anything, which I'm sure you will, please leave a comment and tell me what you would change. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. And as always, thank you for watching.